Cool. Well, as Alan said, welcome everyone to the immigration information session for orientation for spring. We are very, very excited to welcome you all to CSU, whether you're here already or you're planning to come soon. We're ready to have you on campus and start your program with you. My name is John Hildebrand. I am one of the immigration advisors in the ISSS office, same as Alan. And today we're going to go over some information that's really important for your immigration status. And the way today's session is going to work is we have a brief presentation for you where we're going to review some of the essentials that a lot of you have probably already seen in the Canvas immigration orientation, the online course. If you haven't already completed the Canvas online orientation course, do make sure that you complete that. There's a lot of good information and detailed information about your immigration status maintenance and requirements and benefits. If you don't complete that, you'll have a hold put on your account that prevents you from registering for future semesters. So please do make sure you take care of that before the semester starts. You won't have to worry about it. And it does go into detail about a lot of the requirements and procedures that you'll need to follow for maintaining your immigration status. So Alan and I are going to review some of that information with you today, and then we'll have lots of time for questions and answers. We want this to be a pretty interactive session. So if you do have questions that come up while we're presenting, please use the Q&A function in the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat if you would like to interact with one another. If you want to connect, please feel free to use that, but we will not monitor that for questions. We'll just be monitoring the Q&A function. So if you do have a question, please ask it there. We'll either respond via text or we might answer them live. And we have another advisor here, Rochelle, is joining us, and they're going to be helping answer some of the questions that you submit. So we have a whole team here ready to help you out. So please do ask questions if you have them through the Q&A function. And I see there a link to the Canvas course that was emailed to you. So do check your CSU email and you should have a link to the Canvas course, the immigration information course. And with that, let's get started. Okay. So we'll start out talking a little bit about CSU's Office of International Programs. The Office of International Programs at CSU encompasses a number of different departments. And our department within the Office of International Programs is called International Student and Scholar Services. So what we do is we help visiting international students and scholars who are here to study. We do that through providing orientation and arrival services. So this is part of what we offer here. We provide advising services and as well as supporting through immigration procedures and helping you apply for benefits, things like that for your immigration status. We make sure that CSU is in compliance with the immigration regulations so that we can continue to host international students and scholars. We provide services for sponsors. So sponsors are governments or home organizations, companies that are sponsoring students to come here to study. So we liaise with the sponsors and make sure that, that those students who are sponsored have the support that they need through that experience. We do programming, so we plan all kinds of fun events and activities to get you all connected with one another and with the campus and with the community. And then we're available to answer any questions you might have. As you all are coming to a new campus, some of you are coming to the US for the first time, you may not know where to go or who to ask. So International Student and Scholar Services, our office, we like to be a place where you can come and ask questions if you're not sure where else to go. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need some support while you're here at CSU. Our office is located in Laurel Hall. I think Alan mentioned that in the chat. We are on the northeast corner of campus. It's near the Oval. So once you're here on campus, you'll see the Oval. We're on the northeast corner of the Oval in Laurel Hall. And our office is open during normal business hours, so Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 for spring 2022 semester. We have a couple of different options for you if you need advising. You can come to open advising. You don't need an appointment for open advising. You can just show up during the open advising hours and speak with one of the advisors. And we also have scheduled appointments, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference about when you might come to open advising and when you might want to schedule an appointment. But those will be offered both remotely and in person for spring semester. Our open advising hours are Monday through Thursday, so they're not available on Friday, so just Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 1 to 3 p.m. So those are the hours in which you can either you can log in through Zoom, through our website, and you can speak to an advisor remotely, or you can come to Laurel Hall and speak to an advisor in person. As well, we have appointments that are either in person or offered remotely, and you'll schedule those through our Navigate appointment scheduling system, which you should be able to link through your RAM web. There's a couple of different ways you can access Navigate, and you can schedule an appointment with an advisor from our office. If you have general questions or you want to submit documents to us, you can email our general email address, which is isss, 3 S's, @colostate.edu. So the difference between open advising and appointments. Generally, we say if we think that your issue, if you think it will take less than 10 minutes to resolve, we encourage you to join us for open advising. And as I mentioned, for open advising, you do not need an appointment. You can just come in through Zoom or to the office. Situations in which you might want to come to open advising, if you just need general information, if you have questions about CPT or OPT or other employment authorizations, which we'll talk a little bit more about later in the presentation. If you're preparing to travel and just need some advice for what to make sure that you have to prepare your documents. If you have concerns about your enrollment, about your number of credits that you're in, or if you have other kind of general status questions. I think those are all situations in which you can come to open advising. If you have a situation that's maybe a little bit more complicated and might take more than 10 minutes, we would encourage you to schedule an appointment with an advisor through Navigate. In some situations like that, if you have some academic concerns, potentially if you're on probation or you're concerned about being dismissed from CSU and need to talk about the immigration impact, if you're having some challenges with the cultural adjustment or the academic adjustment here at CSU, if you're looking at changing your immigration status, or if you have other complex immigration situations, we would encourage you to schedule an appointment so you have a little bit more time to speak with the advisor and run through some of your options. Okay, so that's how you can come interact with our office, how you can connect with an advisor. So next, we're going to talk about some of the basics of the immigration regulations and what your rights and responsibilities are for your immigration status. And first, we always like to remind students that we're here to help you, and we're here to advise you and help you understand your immigration status, your rights, and your responsibilities. We want you to make the most of your opportunities here while you're here in the US. And there are a lot of benefits that are afforded to you depending on what your immigration status is, and we want you to be able to take advantage of those benefits. One thing we always like to remind students as well is that your immigration status is your responsibility. So we're here to be advisors, we're here to help you assess your options and make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities that you have, but it is your responsibility to maintain your immigration status. We can't manage that process for you. We're certainly here to advise and help you, but if there's a problem or something's coming up and you don't let us know, we can't really help you. So make sure that you are taking an active role in maintaining your immigration status. And please do reach out to us if you have a question, if you're not sure if something is allowed, you're not sure how to approach a certain benefit, or if you qualify, please let us know. We're here to help you all. Another reminder is to make sure you keep all of your documents in a secure place. You don't always need to bring them with you, but do make sure that you have them in a secure place in your apartment, in your residence hall room, so that you can refer to them or you can provide them if needed. We would encourage you to always have a picture identification card, and often that could be your RAM card that you'll get here on campus. It's always a good idea to make sure you have photo ID with you. And make sure that you keep all of your I-20s if you're an F-1 student, or DS 2019s for your records. But if you're traveling, you only need to bring your most recent copy of that immigration document. So you don't need to bring your whole stack of documents. And we'll talk a little bit more about your I-20 or your DS 2019. So there's 4 primary immigration documents, and I want to explain a little bit about each of them and what you should be considering with each of these documents. The first is your passport, which of course was issued by your country of citizenship, by your home country. And you have to have a valid passport while you're here in the US in your student status. So it's really important to make sure that your passport remains valid while you're here in the US. I'd encourage you all to look at the expiration date on your passport. If you have your passport now, take a look now and see when your passport expires. If your passport is going to expire while you're here in the US on your program, you'll need to make arrangements to renew your passport. And that process differs depending on your home country. So the best thing to do would be to contact your embassy located within the US and ask them what the process is like for renewing your passport. The other important thing to keep in mind is for most travelers entering the US, they need to have at least 6 months of validity on their passport when they enter the US. So if you're planning to travel abroad and re-enter, you'll want to make sure that you have at least 6 months of validity on your passport from the date of your arrival. And if not, again, you'll want to go through the renewal process before you travel. Next would be the US visa, which is located in your passport. I think most of you probably interviewed at an embassy or consulate and received either an F-1 or a J-1 visa. And the visa is like a ticket to enter the country. So you only need a valid visa to enter the US. That means that it's okay if your visa expires while you're in the US if you're maintaining your other status requirements. So that's a little bit different than the passport. The passport has to remain valid. The visa, it can expire when you're in the US already, if you're maintaining all of your other status requirements. The expiration date on your visa, it depends on your home country and the arrangement that the US and your home country have. The length of your visa may be different from someone else that you know who's from a different country than you. And your visa expiration date is likely different than your passport expiration. So please also check the expiration date on your visa. If you are planning to travel outside of the US, make sure you look at your visa and that it's valid for the date that you are going to re-enter the US. If it's not, then you'll need to go through the process of getting a new visa at an embassy or consulate abroad. You cannot renew your visa inside of the US. You have to do that outside of the US at a consulate or embassy. So those expiration dates are important and something you'll want to consider, particularly when you're traveling outside of the US. The next document is your I-94. And your I-94 is a record of your arrivals and departures from the US. And this is updated by Customs and Border Protection. They're the ones that check all your documents whenever you enter the US at the port of entry. So each time that you re-enter the US, you're going to get a new I-94 with a new I-94 number. And what we recommend is that when you re-enter the US, that you check your I-94. This will show the date that you entered, the port where you entered, so the airport or the land border crossing where you came into the US. And it will also show the status that you were admitted to the US in. So if you are an F-1 student, then your I-94 will show that you were admitted in F-1 status, and it will show the length of your allowed stay in the US. And that should say D/S, which means duration of status. And that's the same for J1 students as well. Your I-94 should say J1 as your status type, and then your length of stay should say D/S. So we encourage you to check your I-94 every time that you re-enter the US to make sure that you were admitted in the correct status. Sometimes students may have a tourist visa as well as their F-1 visa in their passport. And it's possible sometimes if the Customs and Border Protection officer saw your tourist visa, it's always possible that they could admit you in the incorrect status. And if that's the case, then you need to have that corrected. So we do encourage you to check your I-94 when you re-enter the US. That can be found online at the Customs and Border Protection website. You can check your I-94 at any point. You can access it, and then you can print a copy of that, the I-94, which you'll need for applications for a Social Security card or for a driver's license. You'll need to bring your I-94 with you. And lastly, we have your I-20 or your DS-2019. So these are the documents for your F-1 or J1 student status. And if you have dependents, like if you have a spouse or children, they may also have an I-20 or a DS-2019 for their F2 or J2 status. And this document shows all of the information for your academic program. And there's certain reasons that we have to update your I-20 or DS-2019. For example, if you change your major, or you extend your program, or you change your financial source, we may need to update you with a new I-20 or DS-2019. So if any of that information changes, we may have to issue you a new I-20 or DS-2019. And as we mentioned before, you want to keep all copies of those documents, but you only need to bring your most recent one if you are traveling. One thing to mention with the DS-2019 and I-20 is your academic program, your program dates on the document are very important. If you were admitted for a bachelor's program and you received an I-20, you likely received one for 5 years. Master's program, probably 3 years. And if for some reason, if you need more time on your program, you'll need to make sure that you let us know so we can extend those dates. If you need more time to complete your degree, then you need to make sure that your I-20 or DS-2019 does not expire. And there's a process that we have for extending those dates. So it's important to keep an eye on your program dates for your I-20 and DS-2019 as well. So that's a brief overview of some of the important immigration documents that you'll have. Now, sometimes students may lose some of these documents, and if that happens, there's kind of a different procedure for each one. So if you do lose your passport, it's important that you report it to the police department immediately. If you're on CSU's campus, you'll want to report it to the CSU police department. If you're off campus somewhere else, you'll want to report it to the local police department. And this is important because you'll want to make sure that you have a report that shows that you lost your passport. Just in case anybody asks to see your passport for whatever reason, you'll want to have documentation that shows that you reported it, that it's been lost or that it's missing. There won't be any negative consequences for losing your passport. You'll just want to make sure that you have that report and that you initiate the process of renewing to get a new passport as soon as you can. If you lose your passport, that means you more than likely also lost your visa. So if you did lose your passport, you get a new passport. The next time you travel outside of the US, you'll need to get a new visa from an embassy or a consulate outside of the US. If you lose your I-20 or your DS 2019, just let our office know. We can replace your I-20 or DS 2019. We can give you a new copy. And if you lose your I-94, you can print a new one from the Customs and Border Protection website that I mentioned before. All right. Some more information about maintaining your immigration status. So as an F-1 or J-1 student, you're required to enroll full-time for every fall and spring semester. Summer is not a required enrollment semester for F-1 and J-1 students. You can enroll in summer, but there's no minimum requirement for you. But for fall and spring semesters, the minimum enrollment requirement for undergraduate students is 12 credits. And for graduate students, so master's and PhD students, that is, in general, that's 9 credits. Some programs have a lower minimum credit requirement, but most programs will require that you register in at least 9 credits every fall and spring semester. We live in kind of strange times now with COVID. So in typical semesters in which COVID is not a factor, for F1 students, you're only allowed 1 online class or 3 online credits that can count towards your full-time enrollment for each semester. For J1 students in typical semesters, non-COVID semesters, you're not allowed to apply any online credits towards your minimum enrollment requirement. Now, with the COVID-19 situation, the Department of Homeland Security and Department of State have relaxed some of the online enrollment rules. So we are encouraging any new students to enroll in at least 1 on-campus credit. The minimum credit number requirement remains the same, but you're allowed to take more online classes now. So F1 and J1 students need to be in at least one on-campus in-person credit for this spring semester and summer semester if you enroll in summer. But the remainder of your credits can be online. And that flexibility has been extended, like I mentioned, through summer of 2022. We haven't heard yet about what will happen for fall of 2022. So there's a possibility we may revert back to the restrictions on online classes that I mentioned before. If you have questions about that, let us know. We can walk you through some of your options. There are some exceptions to the full-time enrollment requirement, and there's an opportunity for students to apply for what's called a reduced credit load, which allows you to be below full-time requirements. There's certain situations that we can approve these for. The first is for academic difficulty. If you are in your first year, it means your first 2 semesters, you can qualify for a reduced credit load, which would allow us to approve you to be in half-time enrollment for those semesters. So if you're having trouble adjusting to your course requirements or the English language requirements, please do come speak to us, and we can talk to you about your options about potentially reducing the credits that you're taking in your first year. As well, if you're in your final semester of your program, of your required coursework for your program, and you don't need to take a full credit load to meet graduation requirements. Let's say if you're an undergraduate student and in your last semester you only have 6 required credits remaining, we're not going to make you take 12 credits. You can apply and qualify for a reduced credit load to be in only those credits that you're required to take. If you are a graduate student and you're finished with your required coursework and only are working on your thesis or your dissertation, we can approve you to be below full-time, to just be completing those, the thesis and dissertation research and publication in defense. And then lastly, there's a reduced credit load option for medical reasons. If you have any medical reason, it could be physical health or mental health reason that prevents you from registering full-time for a semester, we can approve you for a medical reduced credit load. And that requires that you get the recommendation of a licensed medical doctor or a licensed clinical psychologist that practices in the US. And if they recommend you, let's say, to be in 0 credits for one of the semesters, we can approve you based on their recommendation for how many credits you should be taking. And you're eligible for a maximum of 3 semesters of medical reduced credit load per academic program. If you have questions about those, please come talk to us. We can talk to you about your options. A few other responsibilities for your immigration status. You're required to update the university and our office with any changes to your address, your phone number, or your email within 10 days of that changing. And the best way to do that is to go into RamWeb, which is your student portal, and you can update your mailing address there, you can update your phone number, all of your contact information can be updated there. And the system, the RamWeb system, will update us in our office, in our system, so we can update our immigration system as well. Please also check your CSU email address regularly. That's where we're going to be sending important information. So you may have a personal email address as well, but make sure that you're checking your CSU email address for communication from our office. A few things about your academic program. The immigration regulations require you to make normal progress towards completing your academic program. If for some reason, though, if you experience a delay, there could be delays in your research, or you may have a medical situation that prevents you from making normal progress. You may need a program extension, like I mentioned. If you do need an extension on your I-20 or DS 2019, make sure that you request those. We ask at least 30 days before your document expires, so that we can make sure you have the correct documentation and extend your document before it expires. Don't let it expire if you need an extension on your document. As well, some of you may decide to transfer to a different university. We certainly hope that you stay here at CSU. But if you do need to transfer your immigration record to a different university, we have a process for that in which we can transfer your immigration records so they can create you a new immigration document. We have a departure form that you'll complete, and we ask that you complete that at least 2 weeks before you intend to have your immigration record transferred to the new university. Okay, at the end of your program, I know that you're all just at the beginning of your program, but when you complete your academic program, if you're a J1 student, you'll get a 30-day grace period after your program completion. F1 students will get a 60-day grace period. During this period, you cannot work. So once your immigration document has expired, you've completed your program, you can't work. You also are not allowed to exit the United States and re-enter the US during your grace period. You are allowed to stay in the United States and make plans for your next program of study, or if you want to change your status to a different status, you can do that during your grace period. But just be aware that you can't work during this period unless you have other authorization, and you can't exit and re-enter the US on your grace period. If you do not complete your program, if you withdraw from your program early, you do not get a grace period. So you would not have this same buffer period of 30 or 60 days. And please do let us know if you are departing and if you're not returning to the program by submitting our departure form, which is on our website. Okay, a few things about alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. We want to make sure that you're aware of all of the laws and rules around alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. So in the US, you must be at least 21 years old for possessing, purchasing, or using alcohol or tobacco. And you cannot have alcoholic beverages or tobacco products on campus. A couple of years ago, there was a state law passed that no tobacco products can be used on state property, and CSU is a state property, and that pertains to alcoholic beverages as well. There are a few places on campus that rule is suspended. There's actually a pub in the student center in the basement where alcoholic beverages are allowed to be sold and consumed. if you're 21, and some events have an exception. But other than that, you're not allowed to have alcohol or tobacco on campus. A lot of you may know that according to state law in Colorado, recreational marijuana is legal to purchase and consume. One thing that can be kind of confusing for international students is that federal law is different than state law in the US. So according to federal law, consuming marijuana is still illegal, and international students are subject to federal law, which overrides state law. So for international students on visas, it is illegal for you to purchase or consume marijuana. Some of your friends, domestic friends, might tell you it's not a problem, but they may not be on student visas. So if you're on a student visa, you have to abide by federal law. Transporting marijuana from abroad or across US state lines is also illegal, according to federal law. One thing to keep in mind as well, admitting to marijuana use at a port of entry. So if the Customs and Border Protection officer says, "Oh, you're in Colorado, I heard weed is legal," and you say yes, if you admit to using it, that can be used against you and you can be denied entry to the US. So it's important to be aware of some of these laws and that you are subject to federal law, not state law. And some other legal considerations for you to know, university policy is not always the same as state law, which is clearly not always the same as federal law. So it's important to be aware of some of these, the way that these different layers of regulation and law interact. And as I mentioned, you are going to be subject to federal law since you're here on student visas. We have a student legal services department here at CSU who provide free legal services for CSU students. So if you ever have a legal situation that arises, we would encourage you to get a consultation with student legal services. Please be careful with your social media, be careful what you're posting. As you may know, in your visa appointment, you had to disclose your social media accounts, and Customs and Border Protection officer can request to look at your social media accounts. So do be careful about what you're posting there. When you are arriving in the US and speaking with Customs and Border Protection, our best advice to you is to answer their questions honestly, but we would encourage you not to volunteer information that is not asked directly of you. Just answer their questions honestly, respectfully. If you have your documents there, you'll have the best chance of being admitted without any issues. Lastly, a note on policing in the United States. Often law enforcement is there to help you, to keep you safe, but do know that in the United States, you have the right to remain silent. So you do not have to answer questions. If the police are asking you questions, you can request to have a lawyer present before you respond to any of their questions. So just do be aware that even as a non-immigrant student here, you have the right to remain silent. You do not need to answer their questions if you don't want to. All right, enough from me. I'm going to pass this off to Alan for the next section.
Thanks, John. I just want to first say thank you to everyone who is using the Q&A feature. That's really helpful because you're not the only one. If you have a question, there are certainly many other people who have the same question. So please ask your questions there so that others can see the answers, and that's very helpful. So thank you for all of you who are using that Q&A feature. All right, well, okay, we're at the airplane icon now, right? So let's talk about a few other things for you to think about as far as your student status here. First off, you as a student, you are automatically enrolled in the CSU International Student Health Insurance Plan. That is added to your bill, and the coverage begins at the beginning of the year and goes until the end of July for the spring semester. So the spring semester coverage covers the spring semester and the summer, most of the summer. And in the fall, it starts August 1st and goes through the end of the year. If you have your own insurance, maybe from your home government or another insurance policy, let us know before January 28th, and it can be removed from your bill. But it cannot be removed after the 10th day of classes. That's January 28th. Okay, and about dependents. Your children, if any of you have children or spouses, they also must have health insurance while they're here. And the CSU health insurance does not cover children or spouses. Anyhow, some other things to think about are that if your spouse has an F-2 visa, they may not work or study at the university level. There are some exceptions. And also children cannot work or study at a university, but they may go to a public elementary school or high school. If you have a J-1 visa, then your spouse who has a J-2 may work in the USA. They have to apply for that process, and also they may study. So a couple of, it's a little more benefits for the J-2 visa holders. As far as travel goes, you are free to travel inside the USA as you please. However, traveling outside the USA, just remember that you need to make sure your documents are in order if you plan to return to the USA. So, during your degree program, if you're just traveling outside temporarily, make sure that your passport is valid for more than 6 months into the future at the time that you come back to the USA, and that your visa is still valid at the time that you re-enter. The visa does not have to be valid for more than 6 months in the future. It just has to be valid on the day that you are planning to enter the USA. Make sure that your I-20 or DS-2019 has a travel authorization signature, and you can get that from our office. It doesn't cost any money, but you just want to make sure you get it, plan in advance and don't wait until the day that you're leaving to get that. And remember also, there's been some questions about this. The visa controls when you may enter the USA. So if your visa expires while you're in the USA, that's okay. The I-20 and DS-2019, excuse me, if your visa expires while you're in the USA, it's fine, no problem. However, if you exit the USA and try to return with that visa that's expired, you won't be able to re-enter. So that means you'll have to get a new visa if you are outside the USA. The DS-2019 and the I-20, those documents are issued by our office, and those control how long you can remain in the USA. And those can be extended pretty easily by our office. So if you need more time to study, just please contact our office at least 2 months before it expires, so we can get that all set for you. That involves your program end date, and also if you're going to travel to a third country. I mean, if you are from India and you are on a study visa in the USA and you would like to go to a conference in a third country like Canada or Korea, please make sure that you have the proper visa to enter that country. Our office can point you in the right direction sometimes, but we have as much information as you do about third country visas. All right, so if you have any questions about traveling outside the USA in particular, or with your documents, please drop a question into the Q&A feature. And now I would like to talk about employment, a really important topic for a lot of students. Now, there are a number of ways that you can get employment authorization, but with the F-1 and J-1 visa, you may work on-campus jobs for up to 20 hours a week, or more than 20 hours a week if it's during a summer break, winter break, fall break. And you don't need special permission to work that on-campus job. So if you find a job in the library or in a dining hall or with your department, maybe as an assistant, you don't need to request permission. That is included with your F-1 and J-1 visa status. However, if you would like to work off campus, if you find a summer internship, for example, and it's not on campus, then that will require special authorization that you need to apply for. So if you are a student, if you in your student status during your degree and you want to work off campus, you have to apply for CPT. That's right here, CPT, and that is for during your student status. If you have graduated or you are about to graduate, you can apply for OPT, and that is to work off campus after your degree is over. Or it's called AT if you have a J-1 visa. Again, that's for after your student status is over, when you've completed your degree. A little different than when you graduate, by the way. You will likely complete your degree before you graduate. Makes sense. Also J-1 students, I know there's one here, you do have to have isss, you have to have approval before working even an on-campus job. But it's not very tedious. You don't have to fill out a lot of paperwork. Please know that working off campus and working illegally is a serious violation of your immigration status, and could get you into a bit of trouble. So make sure that you are abiding by the employment guidelines. And if you have questions about that, please drop a question in the Q&A or come and make an appointment with us. Come to the Open Advising and we can talk about it in greater detail. Right. Oh man, how do I get rid of my my pencil marks here? There we go. Okay, now each of you, whether it's an on-campus job or an off-campus job, you will have to have a social security card with a social security number that you apply for from the Social Security Administration. And this is a little bit of a tedious bureaucratic process that you have to go through once in order to have a job and get paid in the USA. So if you're planning to get a job while you're here, it's important to start this process early. We expect to see many students over the next month or so asking about how to apply for a social security card. And the instructions are on our website. And you have to get a letter from your on-campus employer. I mean, before that, you have to find a job. And you can do that on RAM Web. And then you have to get a letter from the employer, and then you have to get a letter from our office, and you have to take those things to the Social Security office after you create an appointment with them. And then you apply and you wait a few weeks, and then you finally get it in the mail. So it is a bit of a process, but we'll help you, guide you through it. And you can begin working even before you get the Social Security card. So that's good news. Okay, about CPT and OPT and the STEM OPT extension And also after you do OPT, you might have heard that a lot of students will transition to an H-1B visa for employment in the USA. These are really important for students to learn about. And every semester we have International Student Career Week. And this will be in the second week of February. We will have International Student Career Week where we talk in great detail about CPT, OPT, and STEM OPT, and the H-1B visa. And then also we talk about creating a resume and searching for a job and writing a cover letter and networking. These are all important parts about finding a job and starting your career. And so every semester we put on, we give a lot of information for students, and we will also have a Canvas course for you to take to learn even more details about CPT, OPT, etc. So please pay attention. In the next couple of weeks, you should receive an email about International Student Career Week coming up very soon. And we invite you all to attend. All right, enough about employment. I know that there will be many more questions about employment. So please create an appointment with us if you have extensive questions, or come to open advising. We have that almost every day. It's very convenient. Okay, next we will talk about additional considerations. Driving, taxes, some words of caution. So each of you may apply for a driving license in Colorado, and you can utilize your existing driving license from your home country or from another state in the US, but only for 90 days. And then you are obligated, if you drive, to get a Colorado state driving license. There are instructions on our website on how to do that. You will need to have an I-94 and your I-20 or DS 2019 and your passport, and take it to the DMV. We would like to encourage you, though. I mean, driving is quite expensive. Owning a car, very expensive. So thankfully, the public transportation options in Fort Collins are very good. Lots of bike and scooter rentals are available. The Max bus and all the other buses are free for students. You just have to show your student ID. I mean, you don't really even have to show that most of the time. And there are buses to Denver or Boulder. And yeah, so you don't really need to own a board. It's a very bicycle friendly city. You may have heard that every year you have to file a tax return, and that doesn't mean that you have to pay taxes necessarily. Most students do not have to pay taxes, but you still have to file the tax return. Filing a tax return is kind of a confusing process, and even for US citizens, it's a bit of a headache. But happily, we have contracted with a provider to help you through the tax filing service. Now, if you are just arriving in the USA this year, then you're not going to have to file a tax return until April of 2023. But if you were in the USA last year as a student, an F-1 or J-1 status, you will have to file a tax return. And please look for emails that come from our office in February with guidance and services for you to use on how to file your taxes. Again, file taxes does not mean pay money, okay? Everybody just has to file the tax return. And that's especially important because later on you may want to apply for a different visa or work in the USA, and it may be vital that you show that you filed your taxes. So please don't ignore that requirement. Finally, a word of caution to international students. We often hear from students and we are the recipient of ourselves scams from people who are from criminals who are trying to take advantage of F-1 and J-1 students. Just know that there is no government agency that will call you up and demand money from you in order to retain your visa status. The government will not threaten you by phone or email to say you have to pay money or else we will cancel your immigration status, or cancel your visa or anything like that. The government will only contact you with a letter in the mail. And when you receive one of those letters in the mail, it will probably be about something innocuous, something not threatening. It'll just be a notice of an application that you filed or something like that. It's very rare that the government would contact you to say that your visa is in jeopardy. If it does happen, it will be by mail, and if you we would say if you receive one, again, maybe 1 in 2,000 students might ever receive this. It's very uncommon, but if it ever happened, please just take it to the ISSS and we can tell you if it is legitimate. But 99.9% of the time, if you get a contact about somebody asking you, threatening your visa status, it is a scam. And if you have a question about it, please forward the email or the voicemail or share it with an advisor, and we can confirm to you, yes, that's a scam. Do not give out any money for these reasons. Okay. All right, we really appreciate your time and all the Q&A this morning. A lot of the resources that we mentioned about employment, about Social Security and taxes, and the ones that John discussed about academic requirements and the reduced credit load option. These are all listed on our website, in particular among the tab that says resources. You can find a lot of answers to questions in this tab right here. Questions about taxes and travel, employment, and anything else, driving licenses. So please take a look at our website, in particular the resources tab. We also utilize social media. Please check that out for updates about events that are coming up, and check out new photos, and you can learn about our staff and other students here as well. Yeah, we're here for you, and we really want to help you make the most of your time here and to take advantage of the benefits that are available to you. And CSU is a big place, and it has a lot of opportunities that are not always very obvious. So we would like to help connect you to the right places. If you are a student who is sponsored by your home government, just remember that there is another orientation for you, 1 hour long, this Thursday at 3 p.m. So that if you are sponsored by your home government, please remember to attend that. Now, if anybody has any questions, that we're paying attention to the Q&A. So we will hang on here a little bit longer, and the three of us will be able to address some questions that you have. Thank you very much for attending today. You're welcome to sign off, but we will stay and address some other open questions here.
Great, thanks, Alan. We've got a few questions here I want to try to answer live. As Alan mentioned, if you have more questions, please keep submitting them in the Q&A, and I think we'll just start taking them live here. So the first question, someone asked, how can I contact my academic advisor? So this depends on if you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student. If you're an undergraduate student, there's a requirement to complete an online orientation, and that orientation is from the Orientation and Transition Programs Office. So you should have gotten a link to complete that module. And once you complete that module, you'll get contact information for your academic advisor. If for some reason, if you did not receive the link to complete that module, again, this is for undergraduate students, you can email orientation@colostate.edu and ask for that link. So that completing that orientation will give you your advisor's contact information, and you can email them or set up an appointment. If you are a graduate student, your advisor is going to be your departmental contact. So you can find your departmental contact if you don't know who that is. You can find it on the graduate school website, and they should have an academic contact there, and you'll just need to send them a message and they can help you to get registered in courses.
Oh yeah, I see a question from Gamze about receiving many offers of jobs from even in your CSU email. She thinks this is suspicious. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gamze. This is something known as a phishing scam. You know, and it may seem legitimate because the sender appears to be a CSU email holder, and that's just evidence that somebody's email was hacked. This is a big problem, but yes, you're right that jobs are not offered by email. If you want to apply for a job and know that it's legitimate on-campus employment, you do that with RamWeb. So log into RamWeb, and one of the tabs on the right will be about employment. And you can search available student jobs on that tab, and you can apply for them very easily that way. You don't have to you know, submit too much information like applying for a job in a public format. So please look for RamWeb, and that's how you know it's legitimate. And yes, thank you for being able to recognize a scam. Gamze.
Rudvi, thanks for submitting your question here. I see you're a transfer student from a different university to CSU, and you're on your visa. In your passport, the name of the other university was printed. Yeah, so your visa indicates a different university. That's okay. You're still allowed, if your visa is valid, even if it was issued for a different university, you can still use that visa to re-enter the US with a CSU I-20. The Customs and Border Protection officers are the ones that are checking to see if you have a valid visa and an I-20. They do not care if they do not match. The Department of State, the embassy or consulate might tell you you should get a new visa, but in reality, the Customs and Border Protection officers say if you have a valid visa, you're good to enter as long as you have an I-20. So they do not need to match if you are traveling, returning to the US. Great question. Rukuma, I see your question about your GTA position. You're arriving on the 14th of January. Will you have enough time to apply for Social Security numbers to start working? My advice to you would be to, as soon as you enter the US, make sure that you complete the immigration document review. You have to wait until after you've arrived to complete that, and then submit the request for your status verification letter, which is on our website. Submit that as soon as possible. We'll certainly do our best to get you your documents required so that you can apply for your social security number as soon as possible. Some departments are a little bit more flexible and will allow you to start working even if you haven't submitted your request for a social security number, your application. But I would just advise you to do that as quickly as possible. Like I said, submit the IDR, the Immigration Document Review, and your request for a letter as soon as possible, and we can try to get that to you quickly. Do you see any you want to answer, Alan?
Yeah, I see one from Yusuf here about a math placement test. I'm not sure which orientation you're mentioning, Yusuf. It's certainly not necessary for immigration orientation, you know, or our office's orientation. The new student orientation by the I forgot the name of that office, John, that does that.
Orientation and transition programs.
Orientation, yeah.
RAM welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, the RAM welcome, you don't need it for that. So I think you'll need to chat with the academic advising about when you need to complete that. But yes, you should do that before registering for a math class, certainly. Another one from Gamze here. Pretty easy one. I see that you snagged it, John, but it's easy, so I'm going to take it. Yeah, getting a RAM card is pretty easy, Gamze. Just head to the RAM card office after you arrive, and they will print one for you. There's a RAM card office inside the student union.
Okay. Let's see here. Next question. If I receive a temporary lecturer position offer at CSU, but I'm also a GA in my department, can I apply for CPT to work for more than 20 hours? In general, for CPT, you need to be full-time enrolled for at least 1 full year to qualify for CPT. There are some exceptions. If the graduate program, this is for graduate students, if it's a requirement in some way for you to begin working before you've been full-time enrolled for 1 year. So in that situation, it could be possible, but it's likely that you need to be full-time enrolled for at least a year. And then as well, CPT has to be integral to your academic requirements. So it would need to be in some way, let's say, required for your thesis or dissertation research, or that you're earning some kind of academic credit for the CPT opportunity. But we can have that conversation with you if you want to schedule an appointment with an advisor. We can talk about some of the options available to you. Samaya, I see your question about Hire Right. Yes, it is safe to enter your information in Hire Right, HIRERIGHT. That is a company that does the background checks for CSU employees. That is legitimate, and you are that is safe to enter your information in the Hire Right system. But it's good to be skeptical about organizations or companies asking for your information, but Hire Right is safe. See, Alan's typing an answer here. Someone asked, if you missed one of the mandatory orientations, what happens? So if you missed yesterday's orientation, or if you know someone that missed today's orientation, we will have recordings on our orientation webpage. So you'll be able to go back and view that information. So if you did miss yesterday's health network presentation, please do make sure you go back and view that presentation once we have it up. It should be up later this week. There's a lot of good information that was shared. yesterday.
And we'll also send out follow-up emails with those recordings of the video sessions.
Perfect. Thanks, Mary. And Isan, I see your question about your status verification letter. Yeah, we anticipate, we tell students to expect 7 to 10 business days. Sometimes we can process them quicker. So I think it's safe for you to go ahead and schedule an appointment for next week. If you've given us that kind of 5 to 7 business days is probably sufficient in your case. We should be able to get that to you before your appointment.
Okay, I see. Oh, did you just answer Saad's question?
No.
No. Saad, filing for your taxes can be done after you have all of the previous year's tax forms, which will be at the earliest will be February 1st. And at the latest, you have to do it before April 15th. That's the tax deadline day. So no, you cannot do it this month. Unless you already have all the tax forms. I mean, there are a few institutions that provide those documents very early, but in my experience, I've never had them really all until February. So I doubt you can do it this month, but if you have all the tax forms you need, like all the slips, it's called like a 1098 from education institutions, or a W-2 if you worked those forms. If you have all those, then you could apply now, but probably not till February.
Thanks for taking the tax question, Alan.
Yeah.
I need tax advice, so I'm not giving it out. Okay, Samra, how long can I delay my classes for pending visa status? So I'm guessing that you're waiting on, you haven't been issued your visa yet. This really depends on if you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student. The latest we could approve an undergraduate student to arrive is 1 week late, and that would require permission from your professors and your academic advisor. We have a little bit more flexibility with graduate students. If you also have permission from your departmental advisor and your professors to arrive late. Again, it kind of depends on what your department is willing to allow you to do. In some cases, if your department is not able to approve you for a late arrival, we would just suggest that you either enroll online for this semester and remain outside of the US, or you defer your admission to a later semester, because a lot of students are in that situation where they haven't been able to get their visa yet. So I would recommend, if you're a graduate student, to connect with your department and see what they would allow in terms of delaying your start. You would need to be full-time enrolled though, so that you need to have access to your courses from abroad to be able to keep up while you're waiting for your visa if you wanted to stay and try to come late for the semester. So Nasuna, your question is, I think I answered it there, but yes, you're allowed to defer to be able to start for a future semester. And you want to check with your department to see how many times you can defer. Rochelle, you want to hop in and answer Frederick's question?
I think you're muted, Rochelle.
Do you want me to answer it? Okay. CBIS transfer, Frederick asked, CBIS transfer to CSU is effective today. Do I wait for an I-20 from CSU before I complete the immigration review documents? No, you can go ahead and submit your immigration document review. we'll use that to register you in CVIS, and then we'll create you your continued attendance CSU I-20. So you can go ahead and submit the IDR with your transfer pending I-20. Also, when will my I-20 be ready? Give us a little bit of time. We are working through, some of our staff are working through a lot of registrations at the beginning of the semester. But do submit that immigration document review as soon as possible, and we'll try to get you that new I-20 as soon as we can. Jamie is our CVIS coordinator, and she's working feverishly to try to get everyone registered. So we'll try to get that as soon as possible. Someone asked, for spring 2022, will all our courses be online? No. CSU is planning for this semester to be primarily on campus. Some universities in the US have decided to start online. CSU is not starting online. So if you are registered for an in-person on-campus class, that class will start next week in person on campus, unless something changes. But as of right now, that's the plan.
I see an anonymous question about speaking to an academic advisor urgently. Maybe you may not arrive at CSU in time for classes to start. So it depends on what department you are in. If you are a graduate student, you need to talk with your department. If you are an undergrad and you don't have an academic department, then you should consult the collaborative for student achievement in order to speak to an academic advisor. So some students have an academic advisor from their department assigned to them, and some students have an academic advisor inside this office called the Collaborative for Student Achievement. I'll post a link here about the collaborative and you know how to set up an appointment with them. But if it's urgent that you meet with an advisor, then I think you should, and you don't know who your advisor is, it is likely that you need to speak with somebody in the collaborative. And they have, if you are, for example, in a health profession, your advisor may be different than you if you are still undeclared, or you are exploring for which major you, or maybe you want to be in engineering but you have not yet been admitted. So kind of a nuanced question. We probably have more questions for you, but here is I'll post it into the chat, the link for the collaborative. And Saad, you're asking about taxes. Even though I studied in Delaware, they don't have taxes there. Do I need to file the taxes? Yes. Again, this tax return that you must file is not about paying taxes. So the state of Delaware may not have taxes, but you should be the federal taxes apply anywhere you live in the USA. So you may not have to file the state of Delaware taxes, but you would have to apply for the federal taxes. And you should receive a 1098 form from the university that you attended in Delaware. And with that, you can file the tax return. Again, it does not mean that you have to pay taxes. It just means that you have to file the return. And if that's confusing to you, that's normal, because it's confusing to me too. I don't know why the US requires students who did not work in the USA. Why do we require them to pay taxes? I don't know. I'm sorry, I wish we didn't. But you do have to file the tax return, even if you don't pay taxes.
Yeah, and as we mentioned too, we're going to send out information in February or March for the tax assistance software that we subscribe to. It's called Sprint Tax, and they have support for non-immigrant customers. So you'll be able to have access to tax experts who are going to be able to answer some of your questions that we can't answer. I certainly am not a tax expert, so we always like to make sure that you connect with the experts when you have tax questions. Let's see, I have a hold on my account and I'm guessing you mean I can't seem to register for my courses. Yeah, so there's a number of reasons you can have holds on your account that prevent you from registering. So on RamWeb, you should be able to see what the hold is for, which office put the hold on your account. It could be for submitting vaccination records. It could be for not completing an orientation module that's required. It could be for financial reasons. So there's a number of reasons you can have holds on your account. So what you need to do is check your RamWeb and look at the notification. It should give you a notification there's a registration hold and give you a phone number for an office to contact. And you'll need to contact that office and see what needs to be done to remove the registration hold from your account. So our office does put on some registration holds. For example, like I mentioned, if you haven't completed our online immigration orientation on Canvas, we'll put a hold on your account. There's a couple of other reasons we might do that, but the hold could be from another office as well. So you'll need to check and contact the office that put the hold on your account. These are great questions. Looks like we got through them all, Alan. Anybody else have any questions for us?
Yeah, we expect more questions. We know answering one question usually leads to more, and we expect that and are happy to address more. We invite you, even if you haven't started, classes yet, please come to the open advising. We have that almost every day, Monday to Thursday in the morning and in the afternoon. It's just a quick Zoom call. So please utilize the open advising if you have further questions. And if you think, if you can't get through it in 10 minutes at open advising, we invite you to create an appointment. I see from Frederick, you have a GA position. Can I go through I-9 verification before receiving the I-20? I don't see why not. I think yes, you can. If you don't have a social security card yet, you'll have to complete the immigration document review and then apply for that. So there may be some delay with getting your social security card, but that's okay.
I think you will need to have an I-20 before you can do the I-9 verification, Frederick, and you should have an I-20 from our office. If you need it to be resent to you, let us know. It might be the case if you're a transfer student, you may not have the CSU I-20 in, but you should still be able to go through the I-9 verification process with the transfer pending I-20. But we can double check and verify in your situation. So please do contact us and we can look into it.
Sorry about that. Okay, you do need I-20. Yeah.
Can try and take that one. I've had different tech problems today, so that's why I wasn't able to jump in earlier. Sorry about that. I'm Rochelle. brain, and I'm also an international student advisor. I'm just newer to CSU, so this was kind of a learning opportunity for me. And it looks like someone has a question. John, you pinged this to be answered live. I feel like this is a good topic to bring up with an academic advisor, but generally speaking, if they have different sessions that don't interfere, that don't cause a problem with other classes on your schedule that you need to take, there's nothing wrong with taking a morning class at 8 a.m. versus one at 9:30, if that works for you. John, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think yes, certainly if there's the same course offered at different times, you can build your schedule the way that you want to. And I do think it's a good idea to consult with your academic advisor about course changes, just to make sure that, or section changes, just to make sure that you are still registering for the courses that you need. But that's certainly an option, especially for some of the larger courses and the all university core curriculum courses that students have to take. There might be multiple sections, so you can kind of build the schedule with what works best for you. All right, well, it looks like we don't have any questions. If you do have more, please submit them. We'll hang around for a little bit. But just wanted to say thank you so much for attending today, for attending the session yesterday. And we're really excited to welcome you here to CSU, and let us know how we can help you during your time here. We're here to help.